All right, what's up, good people? It's your boy JD. So we got another episode today. Very special guest. We're doing a one-on-one with a buddy of mine, Rich Paukner. Richie, what's up, brother?
What's going on, JD?
Appreciate you taking the time and spending the day with us and talking about the issues, whatever those issues are. So for people who don't know you, won't you let us know who Richard is?
Yeah, Chief Rich Paukner. I'm the 82nd Seaburny technician. 22 years in the military. Currently decided to start transitioning over and starting a civilian career. Um, Something that's been really challenging and stressful, but it's something that I'm super excited about and willing to share my experiences with others.
Yeah. I know the struggle has been real, and the transition process has been taxing, time consuming, and a lot of waiting and unknown. For people that may be thinking about transitioning, do you have any tidbit of advice that you would give on? I mean, help for me. I mean, what would you tell me? What do I need to do to prepare myself better?
The first thing I would say is have a plan, right? It's never too early to plan and have backup plans. Don't put all your chips into one thing. Find a few things that you're passionate about and start looking into it. If you're on LinkedIn, find mentors, find people in them fields on LinkedIn. If not, you're not on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great source for communication across the full spectrum. And it's a place where people want to see you thrive and succeed and are willing to help you. Um, Once you have them plans, get some certifications. Use your TA to get some of these highly sought after civilian certifications and find out what you're going to be passionate about. And most importantly, though, the one that I had to find out is make it a family decision. Bring your entire family in, weigh your pros and your cons, and do what's best for everybody. Right? It's you sacrifice so much in your military career. In my case, it's 22 years, and that's 22 years that my family has really sacrificed. Right? So bringing them into the discussion made it about us and no longer about me, and it's doing what's best for everybody, even that is parting ways with something that you've been doing since you were so young. In my case, it was 18. So you're talking about from 18 years old to 41 years old, 22 years of service, going against the grain and doing something that's going to make you uncomfortable, but it's for the betterness of your entire family. So you guys can grow and move forward with a different, you know, part of your life.
Yeah, I know. 'Cause I got out before. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have any help. And you're spot on. Like I put all my eggs in one basket, and it didn't work out, right? And then I was stuck delivering pizzas, after my time in service and washing cars like a damn crackhead. So I I understand the need to prepare and to have a plan. But the one thing you said that really resonated is involving the family in the process of transition, right? Because the decisions that you make, yeah, they ultimately affect everybody in your household. And understanding that you're a new father, so I'm sure that there's that decision kind of, having a new child in the household kind of weighed on you pros and cons of, you know, do I keep serving, because I have the benefits and I have the security, but is it for the right reasons, or do I transition, find another way? And obviously you're transitioning, but how hard was that decision?
Oh, absolutely. This was probably the toughest decision of my life. Um, I had a very good job proposal out there that was probably the one thing I wanted the most in my career, right? So I was weighing that, still serving, and then figuring out what to do on the civilian side while also just starting all over with a brand new child, a miracle baby. Um, and then just trying to figure a meet in the middle of what was best. Do I go for the job that I always wanted? Do I just continue to serve in something that would not make me happy? Or do I conceive a lot of the selfishness and then meet in the middle with the family and go on this new journey? And it took, I'm not gonna lie, JD, it took months of going back and forth, writing pros and cons, talking to people, finding out, both sides of the fence, what can I do in this career field or on the civilian side, what do my skills correlate to? And then writing all of these jobs that correlate to, all of the stuff that the military prepared you for and exposed you for, to find the best thing. And ultimately, it came down to really supporting my spouse in her future career of a nurse, and then making sure that I'm there for my children and my daughter that's going to college next year, and making up for all that lost time ultimately weighed out. Because mentally and physically, I feel like I can do this job still, but me deciding to do that would be selfish, right? It's time for me to empower my family and put down roots and be somewhere for a long period of time, so I could be there for all the big moments in life and not be ripped away at the first fucking call.
Right. Well, I know you have quite a few options, and I've been in 24 years now. I've worked with quite a few warrant officers, and I would definitely have to say probably one of the best ones I've ever worked with. Technically, tactically, proficiently, like somebody who sets the standard. So, in that regard, for new warrant officers coming in, I know you get to mentor the ones that are local, and certain people reach out, but what would you say to a brand new W01 coming out of WAX, their bullet class there at Leonard Wood, going to their first organization? What would be your tidbit of advice after 22 years?
My best first piece of advice is be hungry, stay hungry. Um, and what I mean by that is always be willing to be the hardest worker in the room, right? I'm not the smartest, but you will not outwork me. You will not out research me. We will go toe to toe and throw jabs in a boxing ring over something I'm passionate about, because I will put in the work and we will go toe to toe. So what I will say is, you know, personally and professionally, stay curious, continue to learn, right? Nobody ever knows everything. And especially with us in the military, policies and regulations change so often. So it's very important to stay abreast of everything. Like in our case, for Liberty, we have various units that have very unique mission sets. So when you're mentoring people across the spectrum, you got to understand some of the nuances that come with these specialty units. And it takes research in order to provide the best guidance and to give, young soldiers that are really passionate about what they're doing and want to succeed the best advice. So continue to learn, continue to grow, continue to get education. Education, both personal education by going to college, getting certifications, and then military education. But get military education that you can utilize, right? Don't just go to courses to get courses, right? You want to be able to implement the stuff that you learn, because everybody's ERB looks excellent, right? ORB, stuff like this. Everybody has tons of bullets on their records and stuff like that, and all these courses that they've been through all of these careers. But how much do you utilize? How much do you provide back to the force with what you have learned, and really influence other people to try to do stuff like that, or go to them schools that they can implement in their day-to-day to make them better, and not only them, but make their organizations better as a whole?
That's the definition of leadership right there, in a nutshell. And a lot of people don't realize, you know, the ability to provide purpose, direction, and motivation to be able to influence others is to make the organization better. As somebody who's had the opportunity to sit on promotion boards, everything you just said is spot on, because you see people who got all these schools have never done anything, right? And it doesn't sit well with board members that you're chasing badges or you're chasing schools, but you're not chasing opportunity to lead. You're not chasing the opportunity to give back. And it hurts people on the board, because what your raters and senior raters are saying about you, hey, yeah, you're great at school, you're great individually, but you're not a great team player. And I would imagine on the one officer side, it's the same thing. But on the enlisted side, obviously you're enlisted at one time, but that's what we're looking for. The holistic concept is still a thing, right? And I like, the civilian and the military education, but not just college courses, certifications, right? Because a lot of people miss out on those opportunities because they're keeping their head low and just getting in the books, trying to get a degree in something, but it means nothing when they're done, right? Because it's some underwater navigation type degree that doesn't amount to anything on the outside, right? But those certifications are very specific to a functional area and something that can be applied, which I think is really important. So that was actually a great point that you brought up.
Yeah,
When it
and talking about, well, like you're saying with degrees, right? Do something you're passionate in, right? Then it doesn't feel like so much of a burden. So if you love leadership, get a degree in leadership. Go in depth into something that you really care about, because if you're genuinely curious about it, it is something you like to read about or like to do. You're gonna feel more energized, to work hard at it, as opposed to getting a degree in economics, something that you might not be passionate about. That's what helped me get through and get my degree, because my degree was in something that I was generally interested in, so that stuff helps. And if no one has looked at, credentialing and getting into certifications, there is a ton of stuff out there. And a lot of it goes in phases, to where it could teach you from having, like, IT, for example. You could have no experience in IT, and the IT is so progressed, it's so sequential, that it'll give you a good foundation and help you as you go through the phases. So, like, don't undersell the certification process. We should be diving into it head first, because what I've learned looking for civilian employment is civilian organizations, if the military, once you exit the military at some point in your career, those certifications are highly sought after and normally at the top of the job postings.
Yeah, no, that's a fact. I haven't really started looking or anything yet, but I definitely have heard that before. That people are looking for those certifications and then experience to kind of match that, some sort of security clearance, and you're pretty much writing your own ticket with that. But you brought up technology, and it's something that I know you're passionate about. The innovation side of the house. Is that something that you're looking to get into on the other side in the civilian realm, or what?
So I do believe in innovation, right? I believe we need to move forward, both technically and technology wise. And we have to evolve, right? We everything continuously evolves eventually, and diving into it. I have looked into some. Um, it's something that I thought about. It's not something that I'm throwing all of my, my stuff into. If it happens, it happens. But more than anything, I think awareness of the technology and the programs that are out there is more important to me right now. Because you've heard it come out of my mouth a lot. You don't know what you don't know, right? That goes for anything, cell phones, ear pods and stuff like this. As we evolve as a society, things get more compact. They get more technology advanced, right? So, if you don't evolve, you're going to eventually become extinct, right? So it's something that I'm not the most versed in, but I'm personally interested into it. So I continuously look for whatever it is, in the 82nd is becoming, very, very light to do our airborne operations and our mission sets at the same time. So the more I can get more advanced technology in more compact capacities into my warfighters' hands, I feel like I'm doing them justice and I'm fighting for them.
Yeah, I know. We've definitely been working on that for quite a few years. But the organizations that we're in, I think, are, for the ForceCom, type of army, um, regular army. Like I believe, like our organization as a whole is kind of leading the army in that aspect, and I think through the relationships that we built along the way, um, the exposure we've had, through relationships and the invites that we get to view, these expos and stuff, the future fight, right? I know what we were trying to do, essentially is, detect hazards and hazard mitigation without even putting anybody on the ground, right? And understanding what those atmospherics are. How vital do you think that's going to be in this next fight?
I think it's going to be very vital. Um, as you and I well know, it's going to be a multi-domain battle, right? So getting autonomous stuff on the battlefield as far forward as humanly possible is vital. The more we could save combat power and preserve it while putting autonomous platforms out there to both search, assess hazards, it is going to be mission critical. And that's why, we've been carrying the torch for so long with trying to get stuff from multi vendors and stuff like that. Stuff that's very, very advanced already that would blow a lot of people's minds. To the mainstream audience, which is the ForceCom elements, right? That don't necessarily get the exposure to this stuff. Because once we expose them, people are going to start talking, right? And we can influence, future waves and generations of autonomous platforms and capabilities that we could fight with a smaller footprint while using autonomous platforms as far forward as humanly possible to, help predict and shape the battlefield before we even put boots on ground.
So do you think we'll have like robo soldiers out there being able to just drop them and do their thing? I was watching a YouTube video, actually. It was a CGI video of basically a robot soldier, that move, shoot, communicate, understood what his targets were, engaged, obviously it's CGI, right? Like, but, you know, that idea has to come from somewhere, right? Back in '04, iRobot came out and it was the same thing, right? Of course, it was a CGI movie, but, that was the army of 2036, right? I mean, are we moving that fast? Do you think, like, it's possible by 2036 or 2040 or what, we'll have robots doing our bidding, and, the human aspect, we're just kind of essentially, checking the checker, just kind of validating that they did the right thing. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, that's some big brain sci-fi stuff right there. Now I do know we've been talking about stuff like that for a while, the exoskeletons and stuff like
Yep.
that. Someday it could happen, you never know. Right now we're working with robots and dogs and stuff like that, stuff that could self-correct itself and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, right now, we're not, as far advanced for, robots to fix itself and stuff like that. There still needs to be manpower that needs to learn a lot of the technology and a lot of, the mechanical aspects of this to keep, progressing forward and stuff like that. And it's going to take both scientists and warfighters to make stuff like this happen, because both are great on each side, right? Scientists can come up with great stuff, but the warfighter makes it great, right? So them two together make an unstoppable force that has to continue to have dialogue and to continue to make these prototypes that keep evolving and getting better and faster and lighter. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah. How do we get more involved? Right. I mean, I know we're always going places and doing things, but for everybody else, like that may not understand or may not know, how to get involved, to be able to go to Aberdeen or somewhere like that that's developing things for the future. How do we get them involved? How do we get that word out? What do you think? That
You got to get
possibility.
some of these parties that are curious, right? Ask for a seat at the table. Ask to be exposed to this stuff. We just did a Avon protection brief from the 82nd, and we invited people from all three compos to see a lot of the technology that is currently developed. You can get it into your hands in a short matter of time. So we got to have some people that are professionally curious to see how can they better their foxhole? How can they, see this technology that might enhance their mission sets and stuff like that? And it starts with talking to people like yourself, me, people that have had a seat at the table, people that we're now introducing to this. Because it's been big on the SOCOM side of the house, right? Special operations, Ranger Regiment, stuff like that have seen this stuff regularly, and they have programs that regularly expose them to technology. They have, great facilitators down there with Al Rios down there in Florida, right? That's spearheading this program that are pushing it to, lengths that I don't even think he's seen feasible when he took the seat. But he's been doing such a great job that we need stakeholders in the ForceCom units, right? Both Seaburn, Maneuver, right? All of these specialty elements to come together and ask for a seat at the table and start, having working groups and exposing people to these programs that are out there, both programs of record and prototypes, JD. Like you and I know when we seen that decon mister, that some scientists created, like there is great technology out there, but until we expose people to see what's available out there, right? Because everything is command signal, right? Something has to have a command signal from the ground up to get the validity, to say like, you know, we want more advanced technology. We don't like what we have, whether it's the Dr. Skull, the historical JCADs, VDRs, UDRs, PDRs, and stuff like that in our formation. How can we advance ourselves with, autonomous platforms or stuff with haptic feedback that I can have on my body armor that can alarm me of a hazard? Because me as a leader on the battlefield, I'm looking out and forward so much that sometimes the things that are the closest in proximity are the most lethal to me, and I'm not always aware. So anything that we could do to help leaders, manage their fight from their foxhole better, we owe that to them.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I try to push is everyone is a sensor, right? Everybody has stake in this because if a CBurn event goes off, it affects everyone, right? So, you know, I don't like looking at it just from a 74 standpoint, 740 standpoint. It's everybody's problem, right? But I think we pride ourselves with our equipment and being so technical and so trivial that the average user don't even know how to turn it on. And I think that's one of the things that we tried to talk to vendors about. Like, hey, it just needs to be a color, red, amber, green. It just needs an on-off button. It needs to tell a guy like, hey, something's going on, and then find a SME, right? Find one of us to go out there and validate and stuff like that. But um, it's I don't know, like I feel like we've been beating on this drum for almost 3 years now, right? And there's some technologies that the organization, our core as a whole cares about. And in my opinion, maybe because the money's already been sunk into it that we're going that way, but I just don't feel like it's necessarily what we need right now.
I don't disagree. I think that we need to look at things holistically, right? When we talk about it from 74 Delta perspectives, we're mainly focused on CRTs, HAPs, and then everybody else, right? So we tend to lean towards that. But when I keep preaching about bringing all the different force structures to the table, whether you have armor, you have light infantry, you have airborne infantry, you know, you have everybody at the table speaking a mutual language to try to evolve things. And we have to understand that some people have more technical missions than other people, right? But at the start of the battle, when things pop off, that stuff does not matter. When you're as far forward as humanly possible and you're in the close fight, right? You need stuff that is user proof, that's going to say, like you said, bad or good. And then my SME, whether it's a CRT, a hat behind me that's not as forward as my combat arms folks, can provide, recommendations and input in near real time speed is what we need to get to, because we need to preserve life and manpower and stuff like that. Even one life lost on a battlefield is too many lives, right? So how do we prevent that with the technology? And I think that we do tend to sway on the CBRN side because I think majority more CBRN personnel have a seat at the table when you're talking about the evolution of technology for 74s, Deltas, Alphas, and 740s. But that's why I've been pounding at the door for Maneuver to have a seat at the table, because we see things through a different vantage point, right? We always want to fight fast and light. So we know how to do the things with the minimum amount of equipment humanly possible. So being an airborne paratrooper, if we exit that door and we do a JFE to do airfield seizure, we can only carry what's on us, and we're limited by weight, right? So we have to pick the important things and really do an in-depth MDMP to figure out, what is important, what are my must-haves. And I think we have done a disservice by teaching, with the means of having everything available to you. Like I remember being at a chem company, and if I took one piece of equipment from a squad or a platoon, they felt like they could not do their mission, right? We need to understand how to do the basics with the bare minimum, and then everything else is easy. Like, oh shoot, I have all this extra equipment, I have all this extra manpower, all of this stuff. You got to think, CRDs do a lot of these missions in very small teams and excel at a high level. Why? They're proficient on doing things very tactical and technical with the minimum, right? Yeah, they get great equipment, but they do the basics first, and then everything else is just icing on the cake. And until we get leadership in positions that will challenge their formations to do everything light and in a minimum aspect, right? Because me as a warfighter, as far forward as humanly possible, I don't care if it's mustard. I don't care if it's VX. My guys need to know if that's bad, they need to suit up or they need to evac, right? And then they'll decide whether I need to continue mission through that area. In that case, I'm going to, posture up, or I could just avoid altogether because that wasn't that important to me. And I think we wrap our heads around being too technical and too time consuming as a CBRN force that Maneuver pushes us to the side because we cannot talk to them in maneuver terms and tactics, and we bore them essentially.
That's one of the first things I always hear, when I talk to leaders inside the Corps is we need to be able to integrate with Maneuver. We need to be able to speak Maneuver. We need to be able to, support Maneuver. And a lot of the training, a lot of the tools and equipment that we have speaks otherwise, right? And to your point, right, Maneuver is the main effort. Always is, always will be, but as a supporting cast, Maneuver can't do anything without the enablers. So how do we make their jobs easier, right? And how do we make our credibility, more viable, right? How do we do that? And it boils down to personality. It boils down to having the right people in the right position at the right time, to be able to have the effects that are needed. Um, you know, and what you were talking about, right? Being able to do more with less. When I was a CRD guy, like everything I worked with was in my cargo pockets. It didn't matter what the mission was. I had a few things in my backpack. Mostly was ammo and water and food, but everything that I had to work with was either on my gun belt or in my cargo pockets, and that was decon included. And I remember when I was in Hawaii and I got to that company and we were getting ready to do an air assault mission, right? And they were going to fly these guys out to conduct a hasty decon. I kid you not, everybody's carrying like 5-gallon buckets and all this. I'm like, all kinds of crap, right? I was like, what the hell is this, right? Because they were PZ posture getting ready. I was like, you can't get on the bird with this. What do you mean we needed to decon? No, figure out another way. You can't. Like, they didn't break down their MRE boxes. They had them full. I was like, strip that stuff. Put everything in your pockets. Like, what are you doing? But having the experience and being able, to think, I guess, outside of the box, on being more proficient, being able to do your job with the bare minimum, and understanding that you don't really need all that stuff. I think is one of the things that really need to be driven home, because we pride ourselves. And honestly, like, I used to hate rolling to the field because it looked like a circus coming to town. All the crap we would bring, right? And I've always been light. I know you've always been light. So we're in units that they don't bring cots, they don't bring tents, they don't. It's like Ranger graves, and you got your poncho liner and your whoopee, and that's it. That's your hooch, and they fight the same way. And a lot of our soldiers, they don't realize that, they don't understand that. And when we show up and we're there to support a maneuver element, we show up like that, we've already lost, right? We don't even have that seat at the table. I remember doing a combined arms rehearsal, and the battalion commander was like, hey, during during indirect fire, as a commander, what are you going to have your soldiers do? And the commander at the time was like, return fire. We were like, what are we talking about? Indirect, right? So it's just having that understanding, mastering the basics, I think, is a big thing. Being able to do more with less, and not relying on every piece of kit we have in our arsenal. One thing can do multiple things if you really know how to master it, right? And understand how it works. And I don't know. It's a lost art, in my opinion. And I don't know how we get back to that.
It's
Because
definitely a lost art. I think
losing,
we need energized leaders to get back and be good at the basics, right? And you hear me every day.
I
I talk
agree.
to the 82nd people about stuff like that, right? What do you need to do? Shoot, move, communicate, sustain, and guess what? Survive. That's your way in.
Yeah.
Survivability.
Yeah.
If I say I can save you from stuff like this, and I can teach you a handful of survivability tasks, that only thing I need is a few training aids, no classroom in a field, right? And I can do this, and then I can show you how it makes your life that much harder. They appreciate that stuff more. But I think I want to go back to your other point, is it's what you said, is it's the right people in the right positions. That's the most important, because you have to fit the culture and the organization that you're in, right? So if you're infantry, you have to buy in historically and be infantry first, right? You have to get that pseudo quote street cred and be, good at their job. Like when we grew up, we learned how to be infantrymen first, and then when they learned, like, oh, you're a 74, you're a chem guy, No way. Like, yeah, man, I'm a chem guy. But you're doing infantry stuff. Yeah, because I'm out there humping with you guys every day with everything on our backs. And then I'm here for your
Yeah.
support if something bad happens. If you need me, it's a very bad day. But I feel confident on getting the street carrot of being an infantry guy first and then teaching you the easy general survivability skills that I know you will survive an attack and we can continue to move forward to meet our mission. And I think generally we need, even if it's not so to say the right person in the job, all it takes is you caring,
That's
right?
it.
We have a lot of people that have the heart, that care, that strive to be great every day, that are doing great things around the globe every day. There are great ones. But for every great one, there's a bad one, and you normally hear more about the bad ones than you do about the great ones. So I
Yep.
don't want to people to think that there are no great ones out there. There are absolutely great 74s in our formations that are doing great things every day. And I challenge you guys to continue to do that. For one, continue to strive to be great, continue to claw and be great, but mentor those around you to also be great, right? Have that legacy of people seeking you out and wanting to learn from you, wanting to mold their leadership style and pull some of the stuff that you do great into their kit bag to become their own leader, to continue them generations of great warriors out there doing great things. But it's not going to happen unless we mentor, right? Don't be scared to mentor even your peers. Peers can learn from peers. Just because you're in the same company, don't be threatened by that, right? Everything comes off the success of the organization, first and foremost. If you're a great squad leader, it doesn't matter unless your platoon is great, right? Just like a platoon leader, you're not great unless your squads are great, right? It all trickles up and down. So empowering those around you, listening, generally caring, and fighting for those around you while mentoring, man, people will climb mountains for you if they see that stuff. Um, those are characteristics of great people, first and foremost, great people and great leaders. And people thrive around great leaders and they wilt around the toxic and bad ones. So choose to be great and choose to make those great around you.
Yeah. I mean, most people, you can tell like the great ones that are out there because they're probably the most humble people you'll ever meet, right? Not looking for accolades, just kind of a good team player, always willing to learn, you know, always willing to teach, coach, mentor. Um, there's a lot of great ones out there. I definitely agree with that. And also, on the flip side, I've seen the ones who are in a position don't know what the hell they're doing. They're not humble. They don't want help because they don't want to feel like they would get exposed, right? For being in a position and not really knowing what they're doing. And they would rather tear the organization down than admit, like, hey, I need help. And it's a travesty, because the organization suffers, the mission suffers, the soldiers suffer, the climate suffers, you know, their own sanity suffers. It's just a bad day all around. But you're right. Being able to sit on promotion boards, you get to see the greatness that is out there, and there are a lot. I definitely agree with that. It's providing the opportunity for individuals to be great, developing those individuals um, to be great, and being able to mentor them along the way to help them replicate what it is that you were trying to build in the organization to be great. And it changes the culture, and it's nice to see that culture shift once the buy-in starts to happen and everybody starts getting it. It's a magical thing. So I definitely know, there's a lot of great organizations out there. We do have a lot of great soldiers. Um, one of the things that, we looked at, we do a sergeant's major forum every quarter and bi-monthly with the divisions and corps. But one of the things that we were talking about was updating the 600-25 and being able to give credit to certain positions, because truth be told, right, in our MOS, we don't have very many leadership opportunities. 80% of our soldiers will spend 80% of their career on staff. It doesn't happen that way for most, but for most it does. Um, so looking at, you know, giving credit to, soldiers that are serving their battalions, as staff sergeants, getting the same credit as a staff sergeant in a HAP company leading soldiers. Um, could you potentially lead soldiers at the battalion level in a S3? Potentially, yes, because there's soldiers down in those cages, right? And if you are taking an invested interest in developing, your subordinates and whoever you got in your three shop that may be under you, I could see that. But if there's no developmental program at the brigade or at the division or, within your battalion, who's going to hold you accountable to develop others? But at the same time, you're going to get the credit as somebody who's in an HR company or on a CRT or whatever, leading soldiers, going through the struggle day in and day out. I had kind of heartburn over some of that, just because a lot of it wasn't feasible to me, right? Personally, this is just me speaking. Um, Same with drill sergeants, right? I was never a drill sergeant. I know drill sergeants, they're taking care of soldiers, they're doing this, that, and the third, but it's to a certain point, and then you're giving them back, right? Or they're being shipped off, and then you start over. You develop a soldier, a civilian into a soldier, teaching them the very basics of basics, and then move on, right? It's almost, to me, it's almost scripted, right? Because you have a cycle, you have, certain things you have to do for certain times, where a regular squad leader, NCO support channel, chain of command, you're dealing with, day night issues, families, I mean, not to say there's not issues in basic training, but um, my argument was it's not really the same, it's not the same. And I was told that it was almost the same. Almost is great for horseshoes and hand grenades, right? Like, we know that, but it's not the same. Um, but what do we do, right? What we still have to develop, we still owe it to them as senior leaders, and that's why I fought. Actually at the academy, I wrote a white paper on the leader certification process, right, at the battalion level, because I believe that's probably where it should be, but any battalion. So if you're sitting on a staff, right, and you're the sergeant major at the 82nd, we'll just say, right, because that's what I did. Um, you're going to find a way to develop subordinates. You have to, right? So, like us, we put out an order. Every quarter we're doing this, and we'll get out and try to train, do opportunity stuff, OIPs, things like that to develop. I know you brought a lot of MTTs out there to help develop, train, um, but they have to want it too. How many times did you spend thousands of dollars to bring training to the installation and barely anybody showed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they have to want it as well, right? We as senior leaders, we can do all the stuff that we want to do. It's in our purview to do. All we have to do is put in the order, allocate for it, and execute. But are they going to show up? And that's the disheartening thing for me. We put all this effort in, to make something happen and it doesn't get supported, and it's like this is your job. You should care about what you do. And I think that's a lot of what I always talk about is, if you really don't care about your MOS and it shows inside the organization that you're serving in, neither will that organization, right? So if you're not making it important, you're not making it a thing, they're not going to care because you don't care, because that's your thing, not mine, right? So you can see the ones who are in certain organizations who care. It goes back to what you said before. You just have to care. Who care enough to make it important to their bosses, to where they have enough credibility at the time because they learned everything that unit did or does, and they executed it well, and they didn't bitch about it. They just got after it. And then when it came time to like, hey, I want to start doing my stuff. I want to implement it in what we do, right? And they're like, okay, let's do it. You got our support. Case in point, 3rd Brigade, right? So, yeah, I mean, it boils down to just giving a shit. You're right. I mean, that pretty much sums up that whole conversation.
Absolutely. And it's such a small act to do, right? When you think about it, caring is easy, right? It's hard. It's harder to turn your shoulder and do something wrong than to care, right? Caring is natural for humans. Like we tend to care. And we see an animal. Oh, I kind of care about the animals and stuff like this. It's not hard to care. It's harder to do the opposite action, right? So you're wasting more energy by not caring and turning the shoulder and stuff like that than doing what is humanly easier and caring in and investing a little bit. And such a little action goes a long way. In case in point, like you're talking about, all it takes is a group of soldiers. It's spearheaded by one great leader in 3rd Brigade, right? Initially, then it morphed into more leaders caring and more leaders mentoring and involving what's around them and creating programs that will live on well after they're gone, right? That's not asking for being acknowledged for what they're doing. They're doing it because they generally bought into the organization, their mission set, and they want it to be great while they're there and after they're gone. And that speaks volumes to those soldiers, right? And the countless soldiers that are doing the same thing. But to the ones that don't care and is just cashing your paycheck, coming to work, doing the bare minimum and stuff like that, I get it. You're employed. It's really hard to not be successful in the military, right? You really got to jack up, right? Yeah. But remember, your job on the day-to-day is what your first sergeant and your commander or your person of authority says your job is. But you're also your MOS, so you still have to do that job. So if, like I used to say, if you're an E5 or a sergeant, right, it's going to reflect on your NCOERs, right? One's a pay grade, one's a position. Which one are you? Do you come in and earn your money, or do you cash a paycheck? And the answer is going to be shown on your evaluations, because your evaluations should write themselves by what you do on the day-to-day throughout a year. If you've come to work, executed at a high level, volunteered for all the hard stuff, worked your butt off, that NCOER, OER is going to write itself, and it's going to be easy. The ones that are hard are the ones that come to work, do the bare minimum, complain, and then want to whine while their peers are progressing at a significantly higher rate than them, because they're going to excel. Like, it's still possible to get to the senior level ranks in a very short amount of time, but you got to put in the work. I've seen people stay E4s, E5s forever while their peers become sergeant first classes and, eventually move on to bigger and better things, special, missions, special units and stuff like this. But put in the work and you'll enjoy the fruits of your labor. Trust me. Our community is so small that you're, what you do and the stuff people say about you will hold weight, because there's two things in life that are undefeated, right? Time. Time is undefeated. Once you waste it, you can't get it back, and it's gone. And karma. Karma is undefeated. You know, whether you put in good to the world, you will receive good. You put in bad to the world, trust me, karma's gonna get you.
All facts. All facts. Well, you know, I definitely think kind of hit a home run, man. Like, these are all things that I know I'm passionate about. I know you're passionate about, and I know a lot of people are passionate about. And, you know, what we're discussing right here, I had this discussion the other day with a room full of sergeants, staff sergeants, um, you know, not being able to conduct their CBRN mission in their organization because nobody cares. And it was essentially this conversation, right? Like having the buy-in in the organization. What are they doing for the organization? Um, you know, this couldn't have been scripted any better, even though it wasn't scripted, because I think that's like the day old question. You know, you always see it on the Dragon Facebook page, right? Like, nobody lets me do my job. You know, I love my job, but I hate where I'm at because they don't let me do my job. You know, and you see it over and over and over, and you hear it over and over and over. And, you know, ultimately it affects retention. It affects, um, you know, people want to reclass or do something different, because they're just not getting the satisfaction that they thought that they would get out of, you know, this MOS. And successful 74 Deltas are some of the best soldiers in the Army because they are so well rounded. And the ones that take advantage of I met a brand new PV2 the other day, right? First thing he said was, I'm trying to get ready to go to Ranger School. I want to do best Seaburn Warrior, you know, this, that, and the third, right? And it's like, how do I be great? How do I do this? You know, I stayed around afterwards, right? And I was like, if anybody wants to talk to me afterwards, you know, one-on-one, so I don't want to hold up everybody. You know, I'll be right here for a few more minutes. Just stop by and we'll have a conversation. Only one that stopped, PV2, right? And we had a long, in-depth conversation. But you're going to have a group of people, you know, 10 or whatever, and you may get one or two, right? That want to do something different and want to excel. And those are the ones that end up winning. And like you said, right, the Army's not hard. It's hard to fail in the Army. It's hard. It's easy to win if you just right place, right time, right attitude, something to write on, right with, right, look good doing it. That's 80% of the battle right there. You know, the other 20% is just figuring out what you're gonna have for lunch and what time we're going home. You know, everything else is gonna work itself out because you look the part, so you're gonna play the part. You know, and I don't know. It's not rocket science, and I get frustrated having the same conversation over and over. You know, with people, and they ask, right, like, well, how'd you? You know, it's easy for you because you're a sergeant major. I wasn't always a sergeant major. I still did the exact same thing. Doesn't matter. So you telling me, like, if somebody's doing something wrong or somebody's standing there with their hands in their pocket, right, in subway, you're the guy that's going to walk by because you're going to wait on me to come and make the correction. That's the attitude, right? That's the culture. That's what's going on out there. People don't understand general military authority or even care to make an on the spot correction. Maybe it's generational because we're so disconnected with how we communicate nowadays that people don't want to be direct and say, hey, you know, you're doing the wrong thing. You like, get your hands out of your pocket. No matter if you're peers, no matter, it doesn't matter what your rank should be, right? It's like, you know, right from wrong, just make the correction. And as a senior leader, I have to do it because they're watching me, right? And it's like all these other people around, nobody wants to say, all right, well, cool, I'll do it, right? So you don't have to be a sergeant major. You know, is what I told him. Like, it doesn't take me to do these things. Like, you can do these. You're a sergeant. You have the
Leadership
exact
is
same power I
everybody.
have.
You know, Leadership's in everybody. Everybody has the ability to lead. Everybody looks for someone else to lean on. It's so easy, to do the hard right over the easy wrong, right? And like it blows my mind. It's unfathomable. Like you said, is how they don't do it. But they need to understand that every time they pass up an opportunity like this, they created a new standard, right? And it's not a good standard, because you could have did something that took seconds. It might have been hard for you because you're not good at conflict resolution and stuff like this, right? But I guarantee you, if someone intervenes and then someone became, aggressive, someone else would step in, because it's like an icebreaker. Nobody wants to be the person to break the ice, right? But, stuff like that is contagious, right? But you got to be willing. You got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? That's what life's about. Like, if you continue to stay comfortable in your life, you're going to go nowhere. But the more you get comfortable with being uncomfortable in certain situations, the easier it becomes. And the easier it is to have them tough conversations without, and it's like I tell people all the time, all of this stuff that we do, I could beat you down and have a beer with you the next minute, right? This is all professional, right? It's never personal, right? I want you to be the best professional you can humanly be. Trust me, if I have a personal problem with you, I have no issues with telling you personally. But that's less than, 1% of the people I've ever met in my life that I have a personal problem with. Everything is professional. I'm going to tell you how it is, right or wrong or indifferent, right? We can come to a mutual to understand that this is just, professional. It's a development thing. You could consume it, be better, and move on. Or you can hold that personal, because I'll see you 9 times out of 10 and still say hello as long as I see you.
All right, stay cordial. But so, with that, I want to go ahead and wrap this thing up. I want to start off by saying, hey, I appreciate your time, and you're right. Time is the one thing that we can never get back. And I appreciate your time and spending, an hour or so with us or with me, sharing your thoughts and your insight, your wisdom, 22 years of service and sacrifice. And, I'd work with you, deploy with you, go to war with you, any time of day, no questions asked, hands down. But I want to turn it over to you for any final thoughts that you might have before we wrap this thing up.
All right, JD, thank you for inviting me on this. I know it's been some time and we've been working back and forth, and I was hesitant, but I believe we had a great conversation and dialogue back and forth. And what I want to leave everybody with as a final remark is keep investing in yourself. Keep being better than you were yesterday, right? Keep evolving as a person. And I want you, most importantly, is to take care of your personal and mental health, right? All of us as humans are fighting through something every day, right? It's the unseen demons that we're fighting every day. But if you're fighting with something that you're really having trouble with, seek me out, seek JD out, seek someone out to have a discussion, have a real candid discussion, because military aside, I never want to see anybody harm themselves or take their lives. So any time of day, any time of night, you could Facebook me, you could Instagram me, you can call me on any media, and I am here to have a tough conversation with you if you are struggling in the moment. But please, whatever you do, if you need assistance in any way, shape, or form, please seek that out. There is no longer a stigma with seeking help. Physical health, mental health. It is real. It plagues almost all of us. And like I said earlier in this conversation, even one lost life is too many lives. And if a simple 5-minute conversation or a 1-hour conversation will have you here on this earth to have another discussion with me tomorrow, is well worth my time. And I will lose as much sleep as I need to have that conversation with you. Once again, JD, thank you for having me on here. It's been a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, brother. Again, thank you. Everybody, this is Chief Warrant Officer 3, Richard Paukner, one of the best to do it. Till next time, you're on the mic with me, JD.